Hello everyone and welcome to The Uncomfortable Citizen. My name is Suzanne Harper and I have an announcement. Another candidate just jumped into the race for president.
Okay, so give us the elevator pitch on how you can actually win the nomination.
Well, the good news, Michael, is thank goodness we still live in a country in which voters make the decision, if they want. This is a choice. Now, I've got the Democratic National Committee competing against me, an extraordinarily large machine. Of course, it's rigged against any challenger candidate under any circumstance. But what a beautiful example of American democracy, where anybody 35 years old, a U.S. citizen born here, can enter this ring in New Hampshire, just like I did yesterday. First in the nation primary since 103 years ago, talking with people, making your case. We're going to win New Hampshire. That'll put us on the radar screen, and I'm going to introduce myself to the country and only give people a choice. I'm not running against President Biden. I admire him. I'm running for the future. I'm running to provide people a choice, because if Democrats with a big D defeat democracy with a small d by pushing people aside, telling them to stand down and get out, that is antithetical to meeting the moment, and it's our generation's turn.
But Congressman,
to take those rings.
Congressman, when you say you admire him and you admire his record and that you've been supportive of it in the Congress, you're then going to have to complete the sentence which says, "But I don't think he can beat Donald Trump." Are you ready to make that case in order to win the nomination?
Absolutely, that is my case, and I don't need to make it. Look at the polls. Last week's ABC News poll has President Biden down 9 points nationally. The Bloomberg poll has him losing in 5 of the 6 key battleground states. You just referenced some of the lowest approval ratings in American presidential history. I don't know how more loudly American voters could speak. Over 50% of Democratic voters simply want an alternative.
Democratic Representative Dean Phillips of Minnesota, and most Democratic insiders are aghast that Dean Phillips is challenging incumbent President Joe Biden. Phillips has voted 100% with Joe Biden, so why is he challenging the president? The most obvious reason is Joe Biden's age. President Biden will be 81 years old in 3 months. Dean Phillips is 26 years younger. But does Dean Phillips have what it takes to win the nomination? He's already starting at a disadvantage, entering the race pretty late in the game. With the first Democratic primary slated for February 3rd in South Carolina, followed by New Hampshire and Nevada on February 6th, Phillips entered the race too late to file in Nevada, so he won't be on their ballot. From there, the next 2 primaries will be in Georgia on February 13th and Michigan on February 27th. Now, conventional wisdom states that by the 5th primary contest, which will be Michigan, a candidate will know if they should stay in the race or end their run. Let's talk a little about delegates. DNC rules state that a candidate needs to win the majority of pledged delegates on the first ballot to win the nomination. There are an estimated total of 1,895 pledged delegates. So Dean Phillips will have a deficit by not appearing on Nevada's ballot. Can he overcome this? Sure, it's early in the primary process, but every delegate counts. If you're like me, you're probably going, who is this guy? Unless you're from Minnesota, he doesn't have much name recognition. Dean Phillips tells kind of an interesting story about how he got involved in politics. He is a millionaire businessman, so he's a political outsider. But according to him, the day after the 2016 election, when Trump was voted in as president, he went to breakfast to find his 2 daughters crying over the results of the election. He promised them he was going to do something about it. Well, now that's what I call walking the talk. Seems to be climbing an uphill battle. But what does Dean Phillips have that could be his ace in the hole? A senior campaign advisor named Steve Schmidt. If you're not familiar with Steve Schmidt, he was John McCain's campaign manager in 2008. Okay, maybe you're saying, yeah, but McCain lost. Well, if you lived through the election that year, you know Barack Obama was pretty much unbeatable. If anything, Steve Schmidt learned a lot from that election, and in my opinion, he's brilliant If anyone can take Dean Phillips over the top, it's Steve Schmidt. For more about Steve Schmidt, check out his podcast, The Warning. I highly recommend it. And I'll leave a link in the description. Phillips seems to have the same strategy as Cenk Uygur, another recent challenger of Joe Biden. And that is to get other candidates to enter the race. The message is clear. Most Democratic voters want a choice. They want a primary and they want debates. How do you feel about new candidates entering? Do you think they'll split the party? Do you think that a candidate like Phillips will gain enough traction to make a difference? Let me know what you think in the comments. And while you're leaving a comment, please take a second to hit the subscribe button. My channel is relatively new, and I need your help to build a community of like-minded people, citizens that can make positive changes at the ballot box. So here's who we have in the Democratic field right now: Marianne Williamson, Cenk Uygur, and Dean Phillips, and incumbent President Joe Biden. Are any of these three candidates going to be a threat to Joe Biden or just a distraction? Will more candidates throw their hat in the ring? Well, if they're thinking about it, they better hurry up and make their move. We'll be into the primary season before we know it. One thing for sure, the DNC may be finally forced to listen to the Democratic voters and what they want, especially if a candidate like Dean Phillips starts rising in the polls. About 75% of Democratic voters want a choice. So I'm going to wrap this up for today. My name is Suzanne Harper, and I'm the Uncomfortable Citizen. Get uncomfortable with me, because the last thing we need right now is complacency. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.